Okay,
Yes.
and here we are again. Dharmendra, I can't thank you enough for you taking out the time to explain these very important but simple concepts. Uh, but people don't get it, and it's very important in business for people to understand these concepts. So I wasn't able to find any good video on the internet that explains this as well as I've heard you explain it to me in the past. So I'd really like you to touch upon the concept of the sunk cost fallacy. You know, a lot of clients I meet, they kind of get trapped into it. And so, what can you say about it so that people can get the idea clear and realize that they're also in that trap? So, take it away.
Sunk cost fallacy has been explained under different names, and I've just jotted down those names because there's so many. One of the terms is loss aversion. The other one is commitment and consistency. Another one is foot in the door strategy. Yet another one is availability heuristic, which is a bit of a stretch, but I think it fits. And we can probably treat that as slightly apart from sunk cost fallacy, but very closely related at the same time. But these three terms, I think, are virtual synonyms. You can use them interchangeably. So, sunk cost fallacy is equal to loss aversion, is equal to foot in the door, is equal to commitment and consistency. And I've touched upon this very briefly while talking about the free concept in the Invisible Selling book. And the reason I didn't expand on that is because I wanted to just talk about 5 strategies and talk about them in depth. And that's one of the biggest differences between my book and my seminars is I just don't go from A to B to C to D and then say, Acha, now you remember we're actually talking about A, which is, I find it very, very irritating and very, very distracting. So if I'm going to talk about another concept and I'm going to just talk about it in 2 or 3 sentences and then come back, otherwise it gets very, very distracting. It is, again, very simple to explain, but very difficult to internalize, just like all the invisible selling strategies. It's very simple to understand intellectually, but people feel uncomfortable with it because it's counterintuitive, and to implement it is actually very, very difficult. It takes a lot of discipline, it takes a lot of conviction, and people just have to do it just like they do exercise. And nobody likes to do exercise, but they have to do it because it's good. So, to make it as simple as possible, it's just 3 words. People hate losses. Now, plenty of people will say, I don't need to again listen to a webinar on that. Even I know people hate losses. But people hate losses to such an extent, even if it's a small loss, or even if it's a loss that makes sense. Sometimes it makes sense to book a loss, to get rid of something that you have invested in because that thing, that person, that possession, that service takes so many more resources in addition to the investment that you've already made, that it is worth booking your losses and just getting out. But people behave extremely foolishly. Even chief executives of very large companies doing billion-dollar deals, they get so invested in a deal, and later on they want to do the deal just because they've invested so much money in the deal. They've invested so much time in the deal. They think they look foolish if they say no to the deal at this stage. So I'm maybe slightly sketchy here, but I think there was a chief executive of Viacom called Sumner Redstone, and he was acquiring a company, This was either in the millions of dollars or billions of dollars. And he knew that once he acquired that company, his company would be doomed because he was acquiring that company at such a huge cost. So I think it was Viacom and American Online, but I'm a bit sketchy about those details. But he went ahead and did it. He consciously, rationally knew that this was a stupid decision. But he had invested so much time and his ego came in the picture, because if he got out of that deal at that time, plenty of people would say that, oh, so far you did not know it was a useless deal, and now suddenly you had an epiphany that it's a bad deal. What kind of CEO are you? So the world thinks that people should behave like robots and circumstances should just happen in a linear way. They don't. We will get insights along the way. So it's a very big problem that people can't tolerate somebody who just changes his mind drastically. If that happens and you're saving a lot of money, then you should do that. But people hate losses. They've invested something, time, energy, money into something, and they just feel like keeping on investing more and more. So one very simple example, in addition to this example of a corporate takeover, this would probably be something that plenty of people listening to this video would be doing themselves or would be seeing other people. So you buy a stock and it crashes very badly. Okay, you buy a stock at 100 rupees. Let's say Satyam Computers, which was everybody's darling. I don't know what the stock price was, but let's say it was 100. And then there was a scandal in Satyam Computers, and the chief executive was sent to jail. And let's assume it goes down to 10. Now, if you feel that there's going to be a recovery, at the same time, there is some other stock which would probably do much better. You should just dump the stock at 10 rupees, book your loss of 90 rupees, and then hope to make the maximum money on that 10 rupees, but investing that somewhere else. So it's very, very irrational, but plenty of people will just stick to that purely out of ego and because of the loss aversion heuristic. And they'll keep on giving themselves reasons and giving you reasons that no, it was 100 right once and it's going to recover. I'm very confident about the new market or the new chief executive or this new company that's pumped in money. It's in most cases completely irrational. They know it that they're rationally wrong, but then this opposing force in their brains just makes them stick to their losses. It's that crazy. So,
yeah. No, go ahead.
Yeah, we have spoken about this from a loss-making point of view. So you have to be, so as I mentioned in the book, one of the reasons for writing the book is for getting people to understand these strategies and hopefully deploy it ethically on consumers or somebody they want to influence. And also to protect themselves from people who are trying to influence them, to make them buy junk food, to make them make loss-making decisions. And there was a article in the newspaper about some broker committing suicide, and I don't feel sorry at all for brokers who commit suicide because they kill so many clients. so these guys are trying to influence you. They're trying to make you use your own brains against you. And so we've spoken about two examples where you should be aware of this strategy to protect yourself. Let's say you're buying something and you've been in a negotiation for a long time. Just because you've been in a negotiation for a long time doesn't mean that you can't walk away. If it doesn't make sense, just walk away. You got a stock, you're making a loss, you don't see any prospects, just walk away. So now we can talk about how you can use this to influence other people. And so that's why I can only request people use it ethically and don't try to sell useless products to people. You see the smartest companies in the world doing this. And I want to take an example of a story which was in Bob Cialdini's book. Bob Cialdini is the godfather of influence. He wrote a book about the science of influence, research-backed strategies to use influence way back in 1980. So he's rightfully known as the godfather of influence. Whoever else is, Dan Ariely is very famous, Daniel Kahneman is very famous, Richard Thaler is very famous, and some of them have won Nobel Prizes, but Bob Cialdini is a real pioneer. So he's mentioned in his book that people who had beautiful bungalows, they allowed hoardings to come up in front of their bungalows. They gave permission for it in writing. It's completely unimaginable, right? You spend a lot of money to make a bungalow, and the guys who make a bungalow, they obviously will look at everything. They look at the surroundings. They will ensure that in the future there's no factory coming up next to the bungalow. So they look at all these things and they're very, very careful about the surroundings. Why would anybody want an ugly hoarding to block your view, to just completely destroy the beauty of your house? It's unimaginable. So how did it happen? It happened through the sunk cost fallacy, or Bob Cialdini uses the term commitment and consistency. So initially they sent some people to do a survey or to just ask questions. And the best way to do that is send students, because plenty of people tend to have a lot of sympathy for students. If some old guy comes to your house and says, I'm doing a survey, you tell him to get lost. But if you got a freckled teenager and he just says, sir, I'm a student, I need your help, you tend to be more kind to him. So those guys go and ask people, can I just do a survey for 5 minutes? And then they would say, can I just put up a small sticker for some environmental message? Let's say, don't cut trees or plant more trees or something. So it's just a small sticker. It's about this size and it's rectangular. Can I just put this on your window or on your wall outside? Now, I would never permit that. I would not even allow the student to come in and waste my time, but there are plenty of kind-hearted people whose milk of human kindness just flows. And they think, oh, it's a small sticker, right? What's the big deal? This poor guy, he's got targets, and let's just help him out. So they say, yeah, so you can put that small sticker. Then they come back after 3 or 4 months, and they try to get people to say yes to putting up hoardings with the same message. So hoarding that says, don't cut trees, a huge hoarding. And they also went to people who did not initially say yes to that small sticker. And the research found that people who had said yes to the small sticker, the percentage of them saying yes to this bigger request was much, much higher. So it's completely irrational. If I just said yes to a sticker, why should I say yes to a hoarding? There is absolutely no rational reason for them to say yes. But it happened. So it can be understood as just get somebody to take one step towards you. If he's taken one step towards you, it's much easier for him to take 10 steps towards you than it is to expect him to take 10 steps towards you when he's not even taken a single step. So convert it financially. If you have an expensive product and you also have some not so expensive products, once he is, if initially he is not comfortable spending a huge amount on your big products, but he buys those small products and has a good experience with you, the chances are very high that when he needs your expensive product, he's going to come to you rather than go to someone else, unless you messed up somewhere else, unless you messed up in positioning and all that. So you cannot focus on one strategy. Your entire offering has to make sense and has to fit in the mindset of the client.
So you brought in all these concepts, right? And one of the things that you said is the step in the door is also connected to this one. Can you show us how that is the same thing, loss aversion and sunk cost fallacy?
it takes time for people to get comfortable with a new brand or a new person or a new company, which itself doesn't make any sense, right? If a company is offering a good product, all you should be doing rationally is just checking out the company, the website, and seeing, okay, this seems to be approved by the authorities, and the people behind the company seem to be very reputable, so you should buy the product. That's the logical thing that a rational person, we would assume, will do, but the world doesn't work that way. People are not rational. They need some other way to get comfortable with a particular brand or a person or a company. So even if you get somebody to subscribe to your blog, which is free, or to your YouTube channel, that is not an insignificant victory, because you got a foot in the door. He is at least, he said yes to you. He's not said yes to your major deal, but he's already said a small yes to you. Moving from a small yes to a big yes is much easier than moving from a no or moving from neutrality to a big yes. So it's just like you wanna spend time with a beautiful girl. You just don't directly say, I'd love to jump into bed with you. You don't say that. You probably connect to her on Facebook and she's accepted your Facebook invitation. Okay, that's a small yes, that's beginning. And then maybe a coffee or something of that sort. And that's it. That's the way, the linear way. It's completely irrational, but that's the way it works.
So basically, what you're saying is the step in the foot in the door strategy is the small one. Like, here, take this little. May I come in a little bit? May I come in a little bit? So I thought it was the reverse when you said foot in the door strategy was similar to sunk cost fallacy. I was thinking that uh, it almost appeared like as though you were saying that one should not do step a foot in the door. But you're saying a foot in the door is a good thing. Start with sir इतना ही ले लो बाद में देखा जाएगा. The next thing I'll talk to you next month or 6 months down the line.
It's a
So
good thing for the seller.
correct. It's good for the seller, and of course, if you're not ethical, then it's bad for the consumer. But if you're ethical in what you're selling, then
Yeah.
it's good for the buyer too.
Yeah.
Because
We were at Starbucks Bandra, BKC, and they offered small pastries for free. We're just going around giving those small pastries. Now, that is the foot in the door strategy. So I purposely did not have that, because those pastries are full of salt and cream and sugar. So the minute you have even one, you feel like having a bigger piece. So, so that is, those products are bad for you, but they're great for the person who's selling them.
okay, so great. So foot in the door, loss aversion, sunk cost fallacy. What was the fourth word you said that was all interconnected?
There's one more term I just thought of. It's called the status quo bias.
Status quo bias. Okay, no, commitment and consistency was one of them.
Yeah.
And now status quo and status quo bias.
Status quo bias is one I've just thought of.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about availability heuristic slightly later.
Okay.
So status quo bias means people don't like to disturb the status quo. Status quo means existing situation. So all these are ultimately because of loss aversion, right? If I have subscribed to your YouTube channel, if I have seen 10 videos of yours and I want to make a website, now my mind will say that I should go with you, because if I'm going to start another organic search process from this point onwards, that means all this time, energy, and money that I've invested in you is lost. So it, it, it may make sense in large purchases. In most cases, it doesn't make sense, because if it's a large purchase, then you should at least look out for, if somebody's going to spend 20 lakhs on a website, then maybe you should look at least one more provider and see what's going on. If he's going to spend 50,000 or 1 lakh and that's a small proportion of his income, then it's not, then it's a win-win for both the buyer and the seller. So these are all very, very deeply connected.
So then the free strategy is also part of this, right? When we start with the free, then we talk a little 1 paisa, then we go to 1 rupee. This is also same. It's all interconnected as part of this same concept.
Yes, but these 4 or 5 strategies are virtual copies of each other. Free has so many distinctions and so many do's and don'ts in it that you have to study free separately as a strategy.
Okay, okay. So you feel like free is still a separate bucket. It's not as simple as these ones, or rather, it requires more work. Free requires more work.
Yeah, it's related, but you have to give it a lot of attention. You should focus on that and study it separately in great detail. Otherwise, you'll miss out something, and the implementation of free can lead to a disaster if it's not done properly. So, related, not a synonym.
Okay, great. Was there anything else you wanted to add to this mix, and any examples you'd like to share which are relevant in your business, what you did, and how it created some impact?
Yeah, so I am using lots of low cost methods to get my foot in the door. A video is a low cost method. A blog subscription is a low cost method. A book is a low cost method. The book is available for free on Kindle Unlimited. If a person wants to buy it, it's only 230 rupees. So, which is much lesser than, let's say, 10,000 rupees for my seminar, or for a corporate, it would be several lakhs per day for the employees. So, people who have seen my video from corporates, for example, there's a Fortune 500 company who there was a senior executive who just saw one video of mine on invisible selling. That's it. Before that, he had no contact with me. And I immediately got a contract for that company in Gurgaon. It's a Fortune 500 company. They were happy with that because the top management of the company sits there. And that led to 2 more seminars in Mumbai for the same company. So that was one of the most powerful, one of the fastest. There was no negotiation on nothing. He just looked at the video and he said, "Okay, we want you here." That's it. There was no further selling. It was only procedural after that. So that is one of the most powerful methods. And getting people on social media, getting connected to you on social media. Social media has to be taken as a very serious business tool. So other people may think of it as social media, but for me, it's only business media. So socializing is not a big chunk of it. You can't really do a lot of socializing on social media. It's a bad way of socializing, but it's a good way of business. So people then know you, they've got a foot in the door, they started commenting on your comments, they're liking your comments. So these are all small votes and ultimately leads to a big vote.
So tell me one thing. I have a client who is uh, uh, doing a particular business and has probably not seen all the aspects of doing that business. And I've, because of my experience, I've kind of shared with them, this is where you're headed. It kind of looks like you're going to fall off the cliff at this point. So maybe you might want to stop at this point and not go all the way and see whether you'll really fall off the cliff or not. Now, and that person is very sweet and very genuine, but is unable to understand. I'm bringing all the data to show that, see this, and you're seeing the impact, right? You were getting orders, now you're not getting orders, right? And I'm telling you why. Now you have this problem that is also getting addressed, and you're not the best option. People will go for other options. I mean, people are not loyal. They are like, wherever I get the best deal, I'm going to go for that, right?
Yeah,
So they're not looking
absolutely.
at you anymore. The loyalty is out the window. So no matter what a nice person you are not the best option right now in the customer's eyes, because there are other options. As long as the option was not there because of the COVID-19 situation, you were a person they were looking at like, oh wow, great, thank you very much, But now, because the lockdown's kind of getting eased off and there are many other people coming in to service customers' needs, your service now doesn't seem like a big deal. And anyway, are more expensive. They were willing to pay the price because at that time there were no other options. But now that options are opening up, you're not the preferred option. So therefore, just, ditch your losses right now. Think of a new idea. But the customer smiled and like, yeah, I know, but I still want to give it a shot. What's going on? I mean, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the evidence of this fallacy right here in front of me. It's like it's been 3 weeks now. I've been conversing with that prospect client to say, don't. And I'm also not going to make money as a result of that because that business is not going to take off as the person had envisioned. What's the deal? They're just trapped. They're finished. They're doomed for. Is there a way to snap them out of the cliff they're going to fall and say, hey, don't fall off the cliff. Come back up here. Is there a way to do anything about it? Or we just have to see people fall off cliffs and just say, that is the way it is. What is your thoughts on that?
I think I like to compare myself to a doctor. Right? A doctor just tells you this is what you're going to take. These are the precautions and these are the medicines. It is not the doctor's responsibility to follow up with the client and check whether he's taken it. So that there are various ways of looking at it, and this is the way that I think is very, very critical, because I see plenty of people, they get very emotionally affected if people don't take their advice. Well, it's his life, it's his pocketbook. Most people do not open up as much as they should with independent consultants. When you got an independent consultant who is not doing any other business, then you should trust him. So people tend to trust doctors, lawyers, and chartered accountants. To some extent, they should be trusting them more, but they should get trustworthy consultants, and then they should really trust them. Otherwise, what's the point of spending the money? So in plenty of cases, they don't. So in this case, you don't know how big his pocketbook really is. If he has a hunch that this is going to work and he's got billions of dollars, then maybe he enjoys playing out his hunch. So let him. As long as you've given your advice, ideally on an email, so tomorrow you can't say that you didn't give that advice. You're clear.
No, I know. That's I've heard stories like that, right? Where when people have a lot of money, like the best way to become a millionaire is you first get $1 billion and then you invest in an airline industry, airline business, and then you become a millionaire. But in this case, the customer is not the billionaire to become a millionaire. There's startup board. So that's, I don't know what to do about it. But anyway.
How big his personal balance sheet is. So, and you'll never know, because you can never know how rich a person is by just looking at it. I know people who wear 50 rupee t-shirts and 100 rupee trousers, and they're worth more than 100 crore rupees. So you never know what game he's playing. So one is he might be playing a game, he might not be revealing his true objectives to you. And the other thing is, if he is not very rational because he's got this money in an inheritance or something, then you can use loss aversion in a non-rational way. So you don't just talk about numbers, but then I like to use the term, you'll burn your house if you continue using this strategy. So that produces an imagery of his house burning down and telling your children are going to become homeless.
You want to make it more graphic.
You're driving through Dharwig and you say, see, your children are going to stay here. This is what's going to happen if you don't take my advice. So you're using loss aversion, but now you're not talking numbers, you're talking emotions. And people are very emotional about their family members, especially their children. So that's huge leverage. So there are lots of documented cases about smokers giving up their addictions And there's a very nice story. So this is a story, but then this is backed by research. Loss aversion is backed by research. So there's a guy who was a smoker for several years, and he just couldn't stop his addiction. And one day he just stopped, and everybody's wondering, "Oh, what happened? What happened? How come you suddenly stopped?" He said, "My daughter told me to quit." And I said, "Why? Why should I quit? I enjoy smoking." She said, "Yeah, but if you don't quit, then you won't be there on the day that I'm getting married." So that's it. That just flipped a switch in his brain, and the loss aversion used in a very emotional way with respect to the person he loves most in his life was very, very effective. So you're using loss aversion, but you're using it in a emotional way.
Well, it's always a pleasure talking to you and learning from you, Dharmendra. I really appreciate you sharing this concept, and I hope it will benefit a lot of people who I think should gain from these insights that you are sharing. Of course, you've done your own research to arrive at this. You've had your own practice, but thanks once again. And as usual, if you like this video or you want to share it, please go ahead, click on like and share. And also subscribe it. This is going to be on YouTube as well. Plus, it'll be on Facebook and LinkedIn. So please go ahead and share this if you like it very much. Thank you very much, and see you.
And if they don't share it, they lose out.
So there you go. So you must share this video so that you don't lose out. All right. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.